Hi Gemini, welcome to your April 2020 General Tarot reading. It's Serena here. I'm just shuffling behind camera and just picking cards from the top after I shuffle and do it again just because it's easier for me right now. I've got some stuff you can't see that are off camera and taking up room on here. So all right. The heart of the matter is the Two of Wands. Maybe being at a crossroads in your life. Even thinking about relocation. I've been getting this card a lot lately, and I've been pointing out the other person's hand on one of the wands, which to me suggests that somebody else factors into this decision. Somebody wrote to me and told me about that on YouTube, and they said that that's what it means. Now, notice that Roman numeral 2, like the Gemini sign. And there, you know, like I said, I've been getting this card more than once. And there have been a lot of changes. You know, we just had the equinox when the sun goes into Aries. This is always a powerful period because of that. There's a lot of action that suddenly seems like it's a lot of events occurring. Everything seems to be getting sped up in a certain sense. And because of that, it can feel like, wow, you know, I need to scramble, I need to make decisions. And it's important to consider everything. Gemini is a very changeable sign. And what you want today, you may not want tomorrow. And so it's not that you're running on emotion. It's that you are taking in all kinds of stimuli. And, you know, when people who are ADD, and I think I'm in that club, one of the things they say is that they don't filter anything of their sense impressions. And that's what creates that sense of frenzy inside of the mind. And that makes sense to me. I think that's how Gemini is. I think Gemini is an ADD mind. But there's a positive aspect to this. There's a lot going on. There's a very lively intellect. And so when you're and then I also read that Gemini is one of the, you know, signs that is very indecisive. And I really, you know, I was always focused on Libra. But it makes sense because you really do have such flexibility to be able to, you know, have to like different things, not just to be set in your ways that way. And so that's a good quality to have, to be flexible, to be adaptable. That's not bad. It's just harnessing your mental power of concentration so that you, and you know, and achieving consistency is important. Being able to, you know, if you have a decision to make, being able to center yourself so you're not just kind of like flailing and feeling like your mind is racing a mile a minute, depending on what that decision is. But it could be especially with career matters and relocation, you know, going in a different place or things like that. Of course, you know, it could be a relationship. In the past position, we have the King of Swords. You know, sometimes the King of Swords can be a judge who's giving this divorce decree. It can be you know, your swords because you're air. But if you're involved with somebody who's an air sign, like a fellow Gemini, a Libra, or Aquarius. That may be a person who has come into your life and is someone that you're choosing between, you know, this person and someone else, or that you are deciding whether or not to wait for this person, because I'll get to the Hangman in a minute. But the other thing too with the King of Swords is maybe this is your father and he is asking you to move home to take care of him. And maybe you're torn about that because perhaps you didn't have necessarily a good relationship with him, and now you're like, oh, now he needs me. Oh, isn't that convenient? But he may not have shown you affection, and you feel like you're being set up for him to, inflict pain, emotional pain on you. The higher message is a Hangman. Like I was saying, I was talking about waiting for somebody. This card can be being in limbo, being in kind of that holding pattern, and sometimes other people put us in there, right? Because they can't make up their minds about something. Well, if this is like a personal relationship where someone is, kind of telling you that they can't make up their mind, you could make it up for them. Because you don't have to stay with somebody, or, if like you're waiting for somebody to leave their partner, if you're the other, the other woman or the other man, and this person has been promising you that they were going to leave their primary relationship and they haven't, and you feel like you're just being jerked around, or that you're kind of in this holding pattern that you can't move on with your life, you can. Nobody's holding you against your will. You can leave. You may not want to, you may not like that option, but it's available for you. And the reason this is an important thing to realize about your life is that you hold more power than you know. You may think that this other person is holding the keys to everything, but they're not. And it's important to honor yourself and not allow anybody to control you to that extent. If, in some cases it can be, you don't have to figure this out today. The Hangman can be just surrendering to the situation as it is and not needing to make a decision right away. And that can be very freeing and comforting when we feel stressed out about something and we unnecessarily pressure ourselves to figure it all out. We don't have to. And in some cases, it would be quite foolish to do so because it's, it's unnecessary. Why do something that's unnecessary? The other thing I would say about the Hangman is it's a card of sacrifice. And this is the spiritual position. So, for some reason, what came into my mind when I said that is, what would Jesus do? And, we're coming up on Easter, Good Friday, and Easter, the crucifixion. And that is twofold. Sometimes people, and that's what the Hangman sometimes can be a useless sacrifice, a sacrifice that somebody is doing that is not benefiting them or the other person. And, this often happens when the person has a Christ complex. I'm going to sacrifice my happiness for somebody else's. And, going back to that example of taking care of one's father, I've said this before, that the king, to me, can be a narcissist, even in the upright position, somebody who rules the roost, but with an iron fist. And everything is supposed to revolve around this person. And I don't believe that is something that we need to, acknowledge, or how can I put it? Go along with. We have our own right to do what we choose to do, and if we have a history with a parent who is always critical, that the King of Swords, this could be like with verbal jabs, and where you feel not good enough, and it really triggers, in some cases, it's not just mild irritation, it can trigger the emotional abuse that occurred when the person was younger. It makes sense not to put yourself in harm's way. So you have to look at what is my motivation for even considering this? Am I trying to be this Christ-like figure that's willing to sacrifice my own well-being? And sometimes I read comments of people who say, who act like, even people who are abusive, we have to, tolerate it because we have to understand them and stuff like that. And I was the same way, but I realized that only works if somebody is actually improving and they are willing to see, to adjust their behavior and improve it. And a lot of these people are blind to their own need to change, and all it does is generate more pain, and then you can't radiate that light to people who would be benefited from it. So it makes no sense. It can make a person depressed and anxious and just have low self-esteem. So it's kind of like shooting yourself in the foot. It doesn't really accomplish much of anything except self-injury. Oh, what I wanted to say, this is the card of the card that crosses you. The Eight of Cups is about leaving what no longer serves you, and it's kind of like, it can be almost like a spiritual quest. It doesn't have to be, but it, I mean, you can leave physically from your current location, and with a spiritual quest, I can see somebody traveling somewhere far away, exotic, or, a country like India that's very spiritual, or Southeast Asia or something like that, and visiting temples or ashrams and trying to find the meaning of life. But it doesn't have to be like that at all. It just is wanting more meaning from life. And even if that King of Swords is a facet of you, it can be having that wall up where your emotions are not really being examined, that you're kind of living very automatically, and you're kind of, something is triggering a need for more investigation of what life is all about. And that's what I see with the King of Swords. And, the Eight of, I meant the Eight of Cups, actually. And, you have to have a willingness, but for some reason, there's an unwillingness to start that. And that also involves leaving a current situation. Was coming in as the Queen of Pentacles, and this can even be like, this is kind of I was going to say Susie Homemaker, but it's really having to do with being connected to the earth, and also nurturing yourself and others, and at the same time being connected to the earth, having a home business, for instance, if you're going to have a business, if you're deciding whether or not, if your decision is whether or not to stay where you are, sometimes I see the Two of Wands as deciding whether or not something that is your bliss, following your bliss, is really advisable. With the King of Swords, maybe you have a career that's more intellectual, like in education or in like the legal field or something like that, but you feel like there's something else you have a burning desire for, even a creative profession. And the Queen of Pentacles to me is like that, is making a career out of something that generates more passion in your life. Now the Queen of Pentacles, Queen is the water element, so it's not necessarily passion like fire, but it's the soul, what moves the soul. So also creative, graphic design, painting, writing a novel, especially with Gemini. And the outcome is a Magician. Going along with that, you have everything you need right here at your fingertips. And you create your reality, Gemini. It all begins with you. Ooh. See, it went from blurry to clear. And you can become that conscious co-creator. Now you notice that the Magician is number 1. We started off the reading with a 2, which is like dualism. And when you become one-pointed and you become aligned with your higher purpose, that can be your passion in life, there is no confusion. And then you can follow it with all your heart. Who was it? Was it the Buddha who said, your job is to find out what your job is and to follow it with all your heart, or something like that? So there you go. And you have what it takes. You don't have to take out a business loan. There's something you can do right now. I mean, obviously you could at some point, but I'm saying that don't use any excuse to not take action, because you will never know what you can create. That's what's so exciting about creativity, is that you start with, let's say you're writing a novel. I've written a novel, and you start out with that first sentence or even the blank piece of paper, and you end up with, or blank screen, to be honest with you, a lot of times, and you end up with all these words, and these words create a reality of their own, and that's what's so exciting. So in any case, Gemini, I hope you enjoyed this. If you would like a personal reading, I do a lot of astrology based readings. Please click the link below. Take care. Bye.